I'm Brian Lilly. 2015 begins and it's all politics all the time. That is the topic of tonight's byline. We are just 287 days away from E-Day 2015. And between now and then, everything that happens here in Ottawa will be seen through the lens of electoral politics. Julian Fantino dumped from his post as Veterans Affairs Minister. Well, that's all about the election. Fantino's a bad communicator. He presents horribly. Doesn't matter whether he was doing a good job. I doubt he was. Or whether vets were really suffering under his leadership of the department. I doubt they were. Fantino was a distraction, a storyline of an incompetent, bumbling minister hurting vets. And that's a file the Conservatives need to own. They can't be seen to be messing up on this file. So Fantino's out. Aaron O'Toole is in. He's hopefully better at communicating, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Even with this change, I still say that the election scheduled for October 19th, 2015 is Justin Trudeau's to lose. I've been saying for some time that I think Trudeau will win, and that makes some of you angry. I've been asked to come on the air and retract those nonsense statements. I won't. And I won't because Justin Trudeau winning isn't what I hope for, but unless things change, unless you act, that's what I see happening. Why? Because Trudeau not only has the media behind him, but an army of low-information voters, the types of people that don't normally go to the polls, but they're ready to say, hey, I like his hair. Sure, they're not going to tell you that's why they're going to vote for him, but in essence, that's what it comes down to. You likely heard from some of these people, your friends or your families over the Christmas holidays. Politics comes up at some dinner, someone mentions Prime Minister Harper, and the next thing you've got them saying, oh, well, that Harper guy, he's mean. I like Trudeau. He seems fresh. These people, now people like this, they can't tell you much about either man other than general impressions, which are often driven, shaped by the media. But enough of these people come out and they vote, then Trudeau wins. Look at this polling graph from my friend David Coletto at Abacus Data. It shows that Harper's Conservatives and Trudeau's Liberals are neck and neck as 2014 closes out. But look back in the year, at one point Trudeau was up at 38%. Canadians tell Abacus they have improving perceptions of Harper, and 50% say the country's on the right track. But when it comes to viewing leaders, Trudeau is seen as the guy most like them. He has their values, which is funny because values, well, that's a vague notion made all the more vague by the fact that Trudeau isn't really telling people, at least not yet, what his government would do if he was elected, other than legalize pot and now apparently prostitution. Trudeau doesn't need to convince Canadians he's right. He needs to convince Canadians that he feels right. How does he do that? Well, first off, expect fewer interviews with political journalists as the year goes on and more appearances on soft shows like The Social, where they're not going to ask policy questions too much and, well, maybe ask more about family and lifestyle. Remember Obama bypassing the White House press corps to call in and speak with DJ Pimp with a limp during the last presidential election? Well, it worked. People, including me, laughed at it, but it worked. And Trudeau's going to copy these strategies from Obama to get marginal voters, low information voters, out to the polls. And like I said, if he does that, he wins. I'm not saying that to make you angry. I'm saying that to motivate you. Remember the old Smokey the Bear public service announcements, the ones that said, only you can prevent forest fires? Well, only you can prevent Trudeau Jr. from being elected. You can't rely on the media to do it. I mean, they love this guy, so you've got to do it. You've got to challenge the media to at least be fair. I'm not talking about opinion folks like myself or other columnists, but the reporters. Are they asking the same kind of tough questions of Trudeau and Mulcair that they'll ask of Harper during the campaign and in the lead up to it? Because I can tell you they didn't do that during the last campaign when the Liberals were led by Iggy. And they didn't love Iggy like they love Trudeau. Nobody loved Iggy like they love Trudeau. So you've got to pressure the media. You've also got to pressure the Liberals by making sure that, well, your cousin, the one that told you Harper was mean and Trudeau seems fresh, that they see comments from Trudeau like these ones.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China. Because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime.
We have to rethink elements as basic as space and time, and the budget will balance itself.
Admires China. We need to rethink space and time. The budget will balance itself. The biggest threat to the world isn't ISIS or Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It is the fact that the world's getting less fair. People need to know about these comments from Trudeau. The polls were tightening by the end of 2014. It's a long way now, from now until October, 287 days to be exact. So things can change between now and then. I think part of the reason the polls were tightening as the year closed out is that people like how Prime Minister Harper handled the terrorist attacks in October, how he handles himself on the world stage, including facing down Vladimir Putin, something Trudeau just simply couldn't do. But I also think the tightening has to do with people, regular Canadians, not political junkies, beginning to realize that those conservative ads that said Trudeau was in over his head, well, they might be based on some truth. More Canadians need to realize that by this October. Are you doing your part? And that's the byline.
Evidence-based policy. When I took the stand I did on legalizing and controlling marijuana, for example, that was very much based on the evidence that our current approach isn't working, that our young people are finding it too easy to access marijuana than they should and than they do anywhere else around the world. On prostitution, I think we need to make sure that we're basing our decisions on evidence.
Tonight's top story, more controversial comments from Liberal leader Justin Trudeau. Speaking to CTV's Bob Fife in an interview that aired on Sunday, Trudeau took aim at the Conservatives' prostitution legislation, even hinting he'd repeal the bill if he was elected Prime Minister later this year. Sun News contributor Ray Hurd joins us now from Toronto. Ray, legalize prostitution, legalize marijuana. We know that is Justin's policy, but those weren't the only comments that have you biting at the bit here.
No, the thing that angered me, what he said, which is your first clip tonight, was that his father taught him to advance towards trouble. Okay. And he was implying that Harper had retreated when the security people put Harper in a cupboard to protect him from what could have been a mass assassination.
Let's get to that clip. This is also from the same interview with CTV's Bob Fife and Liberal leader Justin Trudeau.
Would you have hidden in the closet like the Prime Minister did?
I'm not going to second-guess security decisions. I think it's hard to know how one deals in a situation of confrontation until you're actually in there, so I'm not going to speculate on what I would do.
Well, what can you imagine what your father would have done?
My father raised us to step towards trouble rather than to step away from it.
So, Ray, let me put this in a context of Trudeau's earlier comments. The Prime Minister, there's a terrorist attack going on outside the caucus room. It could have been an assassination, as you said. The gunman, Michael Zehaf-Bibo, was, what, 20 feet from the door that would have allowed him a clear shot at Stephen Harper. The RCMP, the security experts, jumped in, took the Prime Minister to a secure location. It's been described as a closet or a cupboard. It's an anteroom off to the side. Until they could figure out a way to get him out of the building. Those are the security experts. So he wants to rely on the experts for marijuana and prostitution, but he's going to laugh it off and say he would walk towards trouble, as if he would go and stand in front of the gunman.
Here's the compelling irony. In the case of the necessary war against ISIS, at home in Canada, where there have been 2 ISIS-related attacks, and in Iraq and Syria, Trudeau is retreating. Trudeau says he supports the troops, but he doesn't support the mission. So his words that you've shown twice this evening confirm that he doesn't advance towards problems to solve them. He runs away. And I'll give you a minor example. When Sun News scrums him to ask him to explain some of the Orwellian statements he makes, he runs away.
He runs away from Faith Goldie and Mercis MQ.
So that confirms that he says one thing, but he does another thing. And I know Liberals who would disagree with you. I think right now Harper will get a majority, and he'll have an early election to get the majority, and the issue will obviously be the economy, which he's got right, but more important, the wedge issue is going to be Justin Trudeau's cowardice in refusing to support the mission against the ISIS terrorists. That will be the issue, and polls confirm what I say. 2/3 of Canadians support Stephen Harper's mission against terrorists at home and abroad.
I disagree with you on the early election.
Yeah.
I could be proven wrong, but at this point, I don't see anything that indicates it's going to happen. Nobody I'm talking to here in Ottawa says that is the direction they're going in.
John Iverson and I are the only two people who say...
And maybe you'll be right, but as far as whether Harper will win, that's my hope. I don't want Justin Trudeau to win, and there's nobody else out there that's going to do a better job. So our choices are Mulcair, Harper, or Trudeau. And you know, the Canadian public has already pronounced on Mulcair, unless he drastically turns things around. He will not be Prime Minister at the end of 2015. So it's between Trudeau and Harper. And which of the two can do a better job, Trudeau or Harper? Well, and I say it has to be Harper.
Yes, but when you look at the polls and you ask people, who would you prefer to be Prime Minister? I think there's a difference. Justin's the kind of guy you might have a beer with, and he would tell you some tall stories and maybe even pretend that his penis is a fighter jet. But when it comes to someone who can manage the economy and manage the biggest war against terrorism in human history, I think Canadians are not that stupid. So they will go to the polls, and the way they vote will be for the person they trust to protect jobs, grow jobs, and more importantly, to fight terrorists. And I hate saying it, but I will, Brian. I predict there'll be another major domestic terrorist attack related to ISIS in Canada before the next election, possibly within the next few weeks or next few months.
Well, I hope you're wrong on that.
So do
we never want to see that happen,
No.
but unfortunately, I think the chances are quite good on that. Ray, great talking to you, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we talk politics in 2015.
Thank you, Brian.